Quarterback, we expect to hear his name called sometime pretty early on Thursday night one of the NFL draft, is J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. And there are some that may feel that this is a bit of a danger sign because his stock has seemed to rocket in recent weeks. And the reality is more so probably that the media is starting to catch up to what NFL teams are thinking and how NFL teams view J.J. McCarthy and how they view the quarterback position and his traits, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Seen a lot of divided opinions when it comes to J.J. McCarthy. I've seen some that make an argument that he might be their quarterback one or quarterback two in this draft class. And I've seen others that say this guy absolutely stinks. So I was really wondering how I was going to view him after I studied him and watched him. And the reality is I think I land somewhere a little bit in the middle of those two camps. Here's what I liked about J.J. McCarthy. He's got the ability to fit the ball into tight windows on short and intermediate throws from the pocket. Now that's a key distinction I'm drawing there. I'm drawing it intentionally that way for a reason. When his feet are set in the pocket and he can use his lower body, he can fit the ball in the tight windows in the short and intermediate areas only. He executes pretty well within structure within the pocket. He stands tall. He stays relatively tough to make some big pressure throws. Saw that at Michigan. Back to that lower body in terms of his throwing mechanics. He uses his lower body incredibly well from the pocket in his throwing motion. You wish more guys were fundamentally sound in the way that they really utilize their whole body as part of that throwing motion. He's able to extend plays with his feet, and he's a threat to get first downs running. He's not, a burner or anything like that, but he's functional enough as an athlete. Like, he could pick you up some yards, and he could get you some first downs, which in the modern NFL you look for, right? You want that guy on 3rd and 8 that could be a bit of a threat as a passer, but when things break down or things aren't there, he can go get you 9 or 10 yards and move the sticks, and J.J. McCarthy has that ability to do so. So kind of fitting that modern mold of the NFL quarterback. His general accuracy, I thought on short and intermediate passes, were pretty good. Some of you might be saying, well, what about the deep ball? We'll get to that in a moment. So again, short and intermediate area is kind of his strength, right? He's great at working the middle of the field. He throws there with anticipation, ball placement. If you're looking for a quarterback and you're looking for a system, like if you were a Shanahan type of system, a McVay type of system, this is the type of quarterback that you would value because you're working play action, you're working a lot of throws over the middle of the field. J.J. McCarthy profiles very well to that type of system. Some NFL teams certainly will prefer that he has worked under center and he's worked in a more traditional type of pro-style offense under Harbaugh at Michigan. He generally protected the ball well for the most part. Pretty low interception rate, really low interception rate, frankly, and a pretty low INT-worthy throw rate. So if you're looking for a guy that'll take care of the ball, doesn't beat you with a bunch of back-breaking mistakes, here you go. The one thing you'll talk about, which is always kind of a mixed bag when you think about evaluating a quarterback, is did they win? Like, how much is quarterback wins? Is that a stat? Is that a real stat? And, sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? Depends on the player and the situation. But he did win state championships at the high school level. He won a national championship at the college level. He's a tough, competitive leader. And I think something that's going to be intriguing to a number of teams is the fact that he's only 21 years old. So when you think about all the bigger name quarterback prospects in this year's draft class, they're 22, 23, 24 fucking years old. He's only 21. So by nature, in theory, for a guy that was highly touted coming out of high school, been highly touted coming out of college now, he's younger, leads some to maybe think that he has more upside. But the reality is, I don't think his upside is nearly as great as a Drake May or a Caleb Williams in this draft class. His height-weight combo is okay. His hand size is pretty small. He's up and down throwing in the intermediate area and deep especially. And I think to the left, especially when you go intermediate and deep. It's not full-on Trubisky or Rick Myers disease, but he's not great going to the left on a consistent basis. One thing that really stood out, though, was that he struggled to generate any real zip on the ball, on the move, because his throwing motion requires him to utilize his lower body a lot, well, that's not working the same when you're on the move and you're scrambling to the right or to the left. And in general, doesn't matter whether he was standing still in the pocket or he was on the move, really struggles to whip it in there with zip on those deeper throws. So when you're talking about drafting a quarterback really high, you're looking for elite traits, elite characteristics. One of those most important elite traits, no matter what anybody says, is natural functional arm strength and how much of it you got. How much arm pop do you have? How much arm talent do you have? And J.J. McCarthy's, it's kind of mid, right? Like within structure, short and intermediate, especially in between the hash marks, middle of the field, pretty good zip on the ball. Start having to work the boundaries, starting having to go deep, having to do it on the move, not so much. What's interesting to me, though, is for a guy that doesn't have a rocket launcher for an arm, he's basically a one-speed thrower. Like you watch J.J. McCarthy this year, you saw a lot of throws look exactly the same. It doesn't matter what type of throw was required, he's throwing at one speed. It's like the old thing about, hey, you got this running back, it's 3rd and 4. Okay, I can get you 4 yards. It's 3rd and 6. Okay, I can get you 4 yards, right? He just, one thing, one speed, one type of throw is basically all you saw from him. And his ball placement to moving targets was a bit scattered at times, especially when you start talking about throwing outside the hashes, outside the numbers to the boundary. It was really up and down there. Is just in general, his general accuracy working the boundary kind of stunk. And another thing that kind of concerned me watching McCarthy is there was a lot of one read stuff, and he was pretty inconsistent in my opinion when it started to go to where you needed to progress to your second or tertiary reads. Just didn't perform at the same level compared to some of the other guys in this class. So when I think about McCarthy, it's fair to say he was highly touted, and he delivered, right? This guy won championships at the high school level, came to the college level, won a national championship, made Harbaugh not look so bad for a change. That kind of stuff resonates, right? He's a tough, competitive leader. He's got a bit of a fire in his ass, so that's good. He's the youngest of any of the major quarterback prospects this year, which again is going to appeal to some teams, right? Because you're trying to weigh out like, okay, how much of their potential have we really seen? How much is there left to unleash still? And as a byproduct of his age, some teams might look at J.J. McCarthy and say that he has the most upside. I don't agree with that because of some of the physical tools are lacking. He does not have the physical tools of a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, or even from a pure arm strength standpoint, he doesn't measure up to a Michael Penix Jr. or even a Bo Nix, frankly. So he's much closer to Jaden Daniels in terms of our arm talent, which isn't great. I could see why NFL teams would covet his ability to work the middle of the field, take care of the football, play within structure. Here's my moment and thing that gives me pause. How great can you feel about drafting a guy super high that lacks big time arm zip, has some major accuracy concerns working to the outside, he's inconsistent working past the deep or first read, his deep ball game just really isn't there. That should give you real pause. That points to more of a solid starter at the NFL level than it does a spectacular one. Now there's a caveat here. If a team coached by an Andy Reid or a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan, or I would even say Sean Payton, drafted a J.J. McCarthy, I would absolutely be more bullish on his chances and say there's a good chance that this kid could end up being quarterback one out of all of them, because he would get into the perfect type of system, he would get the great coaching, and they would figure out ways to kind of accentuate the positives and mask some of the deficiencies and negatives, and you'd feel really good about him. Like, he's a solid prospect. I've got like a 1st to 2nd round grade on him because he does a number of things solidly. I think what concerns me is his accuracy isn't elite. His ability to go through progressions isn't elite. His arm strength is nowhere near elite. His athleticism really good, but not elite. And I'd even say I lean more towards like a high 2nd round grade for him, because even as I go back and I think about somebody like a Joe Burrow, and part of it, my grading with him, I think I had him like a 1st, 2nd round grade. Maybe it was like a mid-low 1st round grade on him. Part of my concern around him was not that the Bengals were going to take him one. I said at the time that it absolutely was the right choice. He was the guy for them to take, even though I was bigger on Herbert. the thing with Burrow was, while he kind of had a noodle arm, and he did coming out of LSU, his instincts were elite. His accuracy was elite. His ball placement was elite. His ability to go through his progressions was elite. His ability to improvise, to play both within and outside of structure was elite. So he had lots of elite traits and characteristics to his game, of which J.J. McCarthy has none of those. I think you're looking at, you want to say on the low end, a Kenny Pickett type of guy. On the higher end, you maybe say a Brock Purdy type of guy. Feels like a guy you can win a lot of games with if you're going on the Brock Purdy route. But when it comes time to, you need to win games because of him, you can maybe do that some in the regular season, but how frequently would you be able to count on him to do that in the playoffs when it gets to real nut crunching time? So J.J. McCarthy's kind of in the middle of my rankings of the top QBs in this draft. I was impressed. I saw a smooth functioner with the football in the pocket. But it's that lack of arm talent and those lack of other elite traits and characteristics that makes me a little reticent to go too much higher in terms of my evaluation and projection of his future potential.